It's the winking that throws them off.
All right, so
I'm looking to introduce you. Everybody knows Bryan. I'm sure everybody here knows Bryan down in Cedar Rapids. Bryan York. Bryan has been with us for 4 years. Each year he seems to grow. There's a little bit of time where you had a child, even, and got married and all that good stuff. Bryan, as I mentioned in my email, he's an avid reader. He always trying to push his knowledge forward, and I always admire that about you. I've been on the other side of the deal with Bryan, where he's doing some of these techniques to me, and then I recognize it. I'm like, damn it, Bryan, why So he is a really good negotiator, and I've invited him to teach this class in lieu of me because he's just better at it than me. So in that way, I know Bryan's in 4 years he's been licensed, gone from obviously from scratch, not having any knowledge in this industry to $20 million. It's as fast as I've seen anybody do it without a builder. We're proud of him. We're glad that you're here with us, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us.
thank you.
Okay, taking the time to put this together. Okay. Anyway,
Thank you, Matt. So Matt's lying. Matt's a better negotiator than I am, but we'll get into that. So today I want to talk about negotiation, what it is in real estate and what it isn't in real estate. I'll first preface this with kind of how I got here and how I arrived at this information, if you will. So I didn't come from a real estate background. I came from a construction background. And for anyone who's lived on a job site, for any length of time, it's a little bit of a different world. It's a little bit of a rougher neck world. That's been good because it's given me some background on how to deal with difficult people, right? Because that's what we do. We deal with difficult people, and maybe not difficult people in their everyday normal thing, but for everyone in this room who's obviously been doing real estate for any length of time, we know that people are not in their normal state when we're dealing with them, especially when we're dealing with them within a negotiation. Things start going south, right? People start to change very quickly, right? It's high stakes negotiation. For us that do it every day, it's easy to forget that sometimes, that, hey, their lives are on the line. Their kids live in this house or are going to live in that next house. And there's a lot of money riding on it. And it's usually a lot more than the money, to be honest with you. It's usually, again, it comes down to where they're living, their lifestyle, their family. There's a lot tied to what we do. So I want to talk a little bit about that and what that is. I can tell you this, for those of you that showed up for Sneaky Pete ideas, I don't really have any of those. That's not really what today is about. I'm going to go into what I believe negotiation is, and it's really communication. I've been a terrible communicator all my life. I'm going to throw that out there. I came from the east side. All right, came from the east side, and where I come from, people don't negotiate their feelings at all, right? It's a hard line. Here it is. If you cross that line, we're probably going to scrap a little. Dealing with people like that, when they draw those hard lines, it's tough. It's helped me, understand both sides of it and kind of start to understand where people's lines are. But it didn't help me. It didn't help me smooth anything over. I'd never seen anyone do it. I never saw anyone work out a problem. A problem was always terrible negotiation because terrible communication. Okay, so what I'm getting to here is what that drove me to do is look around, and I saw people like Matt, I saw and Lance, and all these people around us, and I thought to myself, what makes them super successful? It's their level of communication. It's their ability to communicate and to reach out to someone and have a good conversation, even when things aren't necessarily going good. They know how to smooth that over and work together. They know how to collaborate. So I thought to myself, well, that's what I really need to learn how to do. So I went and I did everything I could. I traveled across the country to go and see Chris Voss, and we're going to talk a lot about Chris Voss today. For those of you who don't know who Chris Voss is, FBI negotiator of 20 some years, hostage negotiation, and he wrote Never Split the Difference. I'm totally going to rip off his stuff, right? So I recommend that you do go and read his book. Since then, I've done classes with Black Swan, which is his company. And then I've also done some Harvard negotiation classes and things like that. So what it all comes down to, okay, is I realized that I was a bad communicator, and communication is negotiation. So those who can communicate can negotiate well, okay? So when do we negotiate? Anyone? When do we negotiate? Did you negotiate today?
Before I woke up.
Did you negotiate today? Yes. Okay. Do you have a spouse?
No, but I have dogs.
You have dogs. Okay. You probably negotiated a little bit with those dogs. Who has kids? Okay. You have kids. Did you negotiate with your kids today? Yeah. Okay. So every little bit is a negotiation. Do we negotiate with ourselves?
Yeah.
Who looked at their alarm clock today and was like, 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. If I sleep in for 5 more minutes if I lay here, I promise I'll get up and I'll move fast. I'll get right at it. We negotiate with ourselves, right? There's a constant negotiation. So what is negotiation not? What isn't negotiation? Well, in my opinion, so this kind of goes back to what I thought was negotiation years ago. I thought these guys got into this little room and all sat there and, yeah, I'll take that. All right, I will give you this. And I thought that it was this very formal process. And I thought that there was this, I guess, manipulation that was taking place. And the best manipulator won. That's not what negotiation is, especially not in real estate. In fact, that'll come to bite you in the ass, right? As soon as someone finds out that they've been manipulated, and it won't take long, they will turn on you. They won't trust you, and then everything's gone, right? Okay, so keep in mind that anyone who wants to work in this town for any length of time, it's really small, isn't it, man? You're gonna work with your peers over and over and over and over again, and trust is currency. Right? So I got to make sure, you're going to hear me say that several times in this presentation. Trust is currency. And at the end of the day, if I don't trust you, who here has been in a negotiation recently with a agent that they don't trust? Anyone? Okay. You don't have to tell me why, but it happens, right? Your reputation precedes you. And when you realize that someone isn't trustworthy, and you've worked with them in the past and they've proven to be untrustworthy, you don't want to work with them again. What are your statements with your clients at that point? Is it all bubbly? Let's get this deal together. Was it bubbly like that when you were dealing with that person? No, it wasn't. It's dreadful, right? Like, I know when I get there, this stuff is not going to be done like we negotiated. I'm going to have to call an electrician. It's going to ruin my closing, right?
Right.
Okay, so we don't want that. We don't want that. Max said something a few years ago that resonated with me. I don't know that I'm necessarily being that person, but what he said was, be the agent that other agents want to work with. And that's a powerful statement. Be the agent that other agents want to work with. Because by doing so, they say, you know what? Even if they don't necessarily love the terms, or what's more important, their client doesn't love the terms on the other side, they know that you're approaching it with good faith, right? And you're not dicking them around. You're coming to the table. Here it is. I'm not playing any games. I'm not trying to sneak one by you. That's important. Okay. So who here has been in a tough negotiation lately? Anyone? Matt, you've been in a tough negotiation? What's that?
I'm in one now.
You're in one now. Okay. I don't know that I don't want you to give all the details here, right? But I want you to just a little bit tell me about the negotiation. Just a little bit about what's going on.
Well, it's a really high price home, and you got a seller who just put it on the market. But
Okay.
it's an extremely high price home.
Okay. High price for the market?
Yeah, high price just in the price of the homes would be a record for me as far as purchase price goes.
Okay.
You got a qualified buyer, but they're trying to get a deal together. So it's just about price right now.
It's about price,
Yeah. And we're probably about $200,000 off.
which is 180, 200,000. So, I mean, your client is coming into it right now at this point, trying to get a deal.
Yep.
They've obviously got some money,
Yes.
right? I mean, we're talking about two people with certain personalities likely, right? They're successful, so they probably have certain personalities, right? Maybe some ego.
Never.
Yeah, buyers are definitely your A-type.
A-type.
To a certain point, you'll just walk, you know what I mean? If we don't come together.
Okay, and that's probably gonna be, because this is a big deal for you, right?
Right.
It's probably gonna be a little tough, right, to swallow.
Yep.
Are you gonna be able to keep it together with them after that? Let's say that this deal doesn't work.
Yeah, we have a friendship.
You have a friendship.
Yes.
Okay, but still gonna hurt a little bit, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And these homes don't come around too often, so.
They do or they don't? They don't. So pretty big house, pretty over the top?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there was a couple things that I did there in that negotiation. I just negotiated with Matt. I negotiated him for information. I needed to suck him in. I needed to keep him talking. Information is currency. Information is huge currency in our business. Matt, what did I do there? Well, Matt said a few things and I mirrored him. That's a tool we're going to talk about. I mirrored him. I simply said back to him what he said to me. I did do a couple other things too. I started to label, and actually I even did a mislabel. There for a split second, I said, because he said that these homes don't come up very often. And I said, they do come up? He said, no, they don't. I jarred him back into the conversation, right? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about why I would do that. There's some brain science behind that with, that I learned a little bit from Mr. Jim Quick. But then what I did here was I used tactical empathy. I agreed that would probably be, that would hurt, right? It would hurt. So I said, you know what, I can see how that works. I can see how that would feel. That's a big one. You don't want to lose that. I'm throwing these things out there. Now that was a really, really short example of those kinds of things. I'm sure you guys do that every day. When someone's talking to you and they're telling you about a problem, you validate, you're listening, right? So you kind of nod, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you know, that sounds like this. That seems like this. By doing those things, I'm drawing them in. I'm keeping them talking. I didn't want to go forever here, but I'll bet Matt and I can have a pretty good conversation about all of that. And then I could get my buyer to buy that house. I'm kidding. But honestly, that was all to drive out information. Did any of that feel unnatural?
No.
Okay, so all I'm trying to do is keep a conversation going. So again, you guys are negotiating every day. You don't even know it. I'm sure all of you have these conversations and you're probably using these tactics and never have really thought, wow, I just did that. How did I keep that conversation going? And if I can keep those conversations going, I get information, right? Now, again, it's not manipulative. I really do want to hear about it. You know, in fact, I want to know what the address is. I'm excited to hear about the house, you know? So it really is genuine, but by keeping that conversation going and asking certain questions, and even mislabeling, right? It's helpful. It keeps the conversation going. So let's talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about the tools here of the trade. I'm going to skip the BATNA just because I'll come back to it, but I want to talk about what I just did. So mirroring, right? So mirroring is simply replying to whatever they said and repeating what they said. Now, some people will say, yeah, you know, it's good to go ahead and kind of surmise it. That's not really what I'm doing at this point. I will eventually get there, right? Because I'm going to start talking about labels and all that kind of stuff. We'll move this chair. But really what I'm doing is I'm just simply mirroring, right? Now you can mirror and you can use it as a statement, right? Or you can make it a question. How do I make it a question? Who here can speak Spanish? I know you can, Mason, right? Mason, how do you ask a question in Spanish? What do you do with your voice?
I enunciate it.
You go up.
Yeah.
You go up. Instead of going down, this is a statement, you go up. That's all I had to do. So it's a big house. It's a big house. It's a big house. Which one made more sense? The first one. It compels you to answer and to go further, right? And that's all I'm doing. You know, my client, they really like the house, but they're concerned about the geothermal unit. They're concerned about the geothermal unit? Well, yeah, it's older, and, I've heard that it has issues, and, they're just concerned about the repair costs on it. Okay, so they're concerned about the repair costs. Was there something that happened? No, there wasn't anything that indicated that there was an issue with it. So I know right now, they just told me there wasn't anything that indicated that there's an issue. There's not actually a problem. They're making up a story in their head as to the problem because of the age of it, right? So I'm learning that as I go. No, there's nothing that really indicates that. But, I think we should have someone out and take a look at it. Take a look at it? Yeah, here's the thing. I don't really think that there's a problem with it. You ever heard anything like that? You ever had an agent say something like that? You're like, all right, there's a disconnect here. All I did was continue asking, and actually, did I really ask a question, or did I just mirror it and take it up? Which seems like a question. Okay, so mirroring is super powerful, right? I want you guys to try mirroring today, right? Okay, I want you to, as soon as you walk out of here, and you can do it anywhere. If you want to start a conversation, mirroring is super helpful. You see someone who's having a bad day, mirror them just a little bit. And you'll hear everything that they have to say if you have the time, all right? Sometimes you have to solidify my understanding, okay? So what do labeling statements sound like? It seems like, it sounds like. Yeah, they're really concerned about this geothermal, Okay, so it seems like that's quite a bit of an issue to them. Well, yeah, I don't know, maybe, but so did they, it seems like they might have had, something like this go wrong in the past, or maybe no, he didn't say that. You know what? I'm not real sure what his issue is. I'm simply labeling it to keep the conversation going. It seems like this, it seems like that. Now, every now and then you'll get an agent who gets pissed off, right? Who's dealt with an agent that really went off the rails and got really upset with them. Anyone? Okay, so when that happens, seems like you're really upset about this, right? Now, that seems like it would be a trigger statement, but actually what happens is oftentimes they'll say no. Oftentimes they'll say no. Well, if they say that they're not upset about it when I labeled it, I can say, I'm not saying that you are, but it seems like it. What they're going to do by saying I'm not, right? There's cognitive dissonance that happens in their brain there. It's difficult for them to stay upset at that point. If they say they're not upset, they don't want to seem rude. Who wants to seem rude, right? If someone said, man, you're not someone who's negotiating. Let's say that your spouse was listening to a conversation that you're having with someone. She said, "Honey, you're being kind of rude." What? I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be unfair here. I don't want to be the jerk that I know that I am when I lay my head down. The point is that once you say those kinds of things and they say those things out loud, it transfers. Now, this is going to go back to that mislabeling that I was talking about. When we're upset, our amygdala is hijacked. Anyone who know anything about your amygdala, those kinds of things, right? Your reptilian brain, if you will. Okay? So when we get upset, this is the first part of our brain to develop in humans. And it's the part that says fight, flight, freeze, right? Okay, so we've all heard that kind of stuff before. When we are upset, our amygdala is being hijacked, right? But If I make you say something, if I make you say it out loud, it means nothing if I say it. You have to say it. If you say out loud that you're not upset, instead, everything is going through the prefrontal cortex of your brain. The prefrontal lobe. When that happens, you are now no longer being hijacked. You are now thinking about the situation. And now all of a sudden you go, maybe I am coming off that way. You know what? I'm not upset. This is not that big of a deal. All of a sudden, I'm bringing you into reality, right? And away from the emotion, which is a big deal. We're going to talk a little bit about that and emotion and that damn East-Sider and all that kind of stuff here pretty soon too, right? Okay. We want to pull that out. So labeling helps me understand. It helps you understand. It helps the other party understand how they're feeling, what they're saying. I can label, I can mislabel. Seems like you're having a tough time with your client. Seems like he doesn't want to pay any more, Matt. Is that true?
Question, we're gonna find out.
Well, I mean, but it also seems like you have a pretty good relationship with him. So if it falls apart, you'll move on to the next one. Okay. So you're thinking about those things. You're saying those things a lot. And now, what your emotion you might have to that of, damn, I don't want this to fall apart. You might be going, yeah, if this falls apart, it's not that big a deal. Now, who do we negotiate with in a deal? Do you negotiate, if you're representing the buyer, do you negotiate with the seller? Anyone?
Yes.
You do. You negotiate with the seller. No, you don't. You negotiate with the agent. You negotiate with the agent and you negotiate with your client. So this was a big one for me in wrapping my head around. So I came from negotiating contracts there for a little bit. I was managing fighters, professional fighters. And who I would negotiate with was actually that person on the other side to try to get sponsorship dollars. That's what I would do. That was the gig. Now I don't do that. I don't negotiate directly with the seller or who actually has the product that we want. I don't do that. So that took me a long time to wrap my head around it. So this is again where that trust is currency amongst other agents, right? Those other agents trusting you. That's a big deal here. Knowing that I am communicating with the other agent and then they're communicating with their client, by default, that means that I negotiate with my client. I negotiate with my client, not against my client, but with my client. So who here has had a client that has definitely gone off the rails in a negotiation? Not the agent, not the seller, or maybe they were the seller, your client, right? You're often talking your client off of the ledge, aren't you? Okay, that's actually what we do in many times. So again, we've got to remember that amygdala is hijacked easily when someone starts talking about how your house has this issue and this issue and this issue, and it's no longer worth this and this and this and this, right? As soon as you start telling people that, especially like, let's say that you're sitting at the table trying to get a listing agreement, and they think their house is worth $400,000, and this house is worth $350 on a great day. You get the pictures just right, you'll be good. $350. What do you say to that? Right? So who are you negotiating with at that point in time? You're negotiating with the client, okay? And again, hijacked amygdala, very, very common here. So if I'm negotiating with my client, when I present information, and then I have to present that information and negotiate with that agent, and then that agent has to present and negotiate with them, who do I want on my side? I want the other agent on my side. The other agent is not my adversary, okay? Again, that was a difficult thing for me to wrap my head around from where I came from. I looked at our negotiations and I said, that is my prey. I'm going to negotiate them down. Is the other agent your prey? No, they are your friend, because you can present this great negotiation. You can do anything and everything that I've got on here. Great offer. And if that agent presents it terribly, you're not going to get the house. You're not going to get the deal. So you have to rely on that agent on the other side of the transaction to do a lot of this work for you. And if you piss them off, they're not going to do that on your behalf, right? So there's a very fine line here. Who has been in a negotiation that you felt like everything was good, this was a great offer, and you just felt like that agent did not present that offer properly? Anyone? Anyone been in a deal like that? Come on. Okay, so I'm seeing some head nods. And that again goes back to that trust. So we'll come back to that a little bit here. I want to talk about an accusation audit. Okay, so an accusation audit is you're gonna feel like such and such. Okay, so an accusation audit is I'm going to try to again labels and accusation audits seem a lot alike, and they're connected to some degree. But an accusation audit is let's say that I'm getting ready to present this inspection. I come back down to that a lot because I feel like those are really tough negotiations, or can be, right? When we're going back to that inspection agreement, the addendum. If I say, it's going to seem like we're asking a lot here, but here's what we're asking, right? If I say that, or if I say, Travis, I'm gonna ruin your day with this, man. It's really gonna seem like we're really being unfair here. I want to work through it. What do you think of me? What do you think about what's happening?
I want to give you a chance.
Well, give me a chance. You're like, you know what? This guy's coming to me with good faith. He doesn't seem like he's coming and trying to throw his weight around. He's identifying that by saying that. He's immediately identifying that he has empathy toward the other side, toward my clients, which is a big one. That's a big one. Who here, again, who has been on the other side of the negotiation, and you felt that agent could care less about your clients? How'd that make you feel?
Frustrated.
If you're a good agent, it should have pissed you off, right? You don't care about my clients. These are my people, right?
And the conversation was very slow, usually in that instance. Like you're waiting days even sometimes for something to get just answered.
Okay, so they're not respecting your time on that, right? They're dragging it out. Okay, yeah. So that's another. Well, I'll touch on that a little bit as far as timing and negotiation. I wanted to kind of start this with overall easy things, and then for agents that haven't been around very long, we'll kind of get into negotiations and here's what it is at the time. I don't think Mike needs to hear about how to break down the contract. He's been doing this a long time, right? Getting back to it, it's important that you do show empathy and you show that you care about the other side too. Because as soon as an agent feels that you don't care about their client, they don't want to work with you. They're not going to present anything in good faith. They're certainly not going to go to bat for this anymore. They don't like you. They don't care if the deal works out or not, right? We definitely don't want that. Everything starts to dwindle really, really fast there, okay? So that accusation audit, you're going to feel like we're doing this. It's going to seem like we're doing this. But here's the thing. By doing that accusation audit, it kind of kills that elephant in the room, right? The elephant doesn't go away. That's a big one to know. The elephant does not go away. The only way that you can make that elephant smaller is by saying, there's an elephant in the room. And everyone kind of looks at it and goes, it's not that bad. Yeah, we can work through that, right? Because again, it's taking it away from the amygdala. It's taken to our thinking part of our brain, right? Is it that big a deal? Can we work through this? What's the overall goal? So calibrated questions, I'll follow that up with that calibrated question. So I'll say, Travis, it's going to seem like we're asking a lot here, but I want to keep this. What can we do to keep this together? It's a calibrated question. Because it's really open-ended. Now, sometimes you'll have someone that says, well, they can pay more. Well, sure, you know, so that is possible that they can say that. But they may say, look, you know what? Here's the things that are important to them. And by the way, is price always what's important to a client? Is it always price? So I want to talk about, just give a little story here. It was my first year in the business, maybe a year and a half in. And I met this couple, I was showing them houses. You know, they were going to buy a $400,000 or $500,000 house, which that's a lot of money, you know? I mean, $400,000 or $500,000 doesn't buy you what it did a few years back, but it was still a pretty nice house, and especially for a year and a half in agent, you know? I was like, all right, this will be great. So, actually, you know what? I think I was more like 9 months in now that I'm thinking back to it. It doesn't matter. Anyhow, the point is we went into the house. She loved it. She loved it. And I thought, because he was kind of a driver, and we're going to talk about disc and all that kind of stuff here shortly, but he was a driver. He was kind of short to it, a little DI, right? So a little bit of a talkative in certain things, but when it came to the deal, he was really short. And he asked me how I felt about the property. And I said, well, I think it might be a little overpriced, because I thought that's what he wanted to hear. And maybe it was, maybe just a little bit, but it was spring and prices were up. That's all there is to it. And the comps for December are not the comps for March. It's not the same damn thing. Okay, that's another thing to remember. So I'm like, yeah, you know, I think we can go in a little bit lower. And in that negotiation, somebody else came in and put in a higher offer, and they swept it out from underneath us. They didn't even give us the chance to go highest and best at that point. They're like, you guys came in too low. We don't even want to deal with you. These people came in and gave us what we wanted. I lost those clients. I lost those clients because I thought that it was money that was important to them. I thought that it was winning that was important to them. It wasn't. She loved the house. She loved the location. Notice I say she a lot, because that's important. It's been my experience that she's going to get what she wants, all right? Just throwing that out there. And I screwed it up, and she did not like me. He liked me. She didn't like me for screwing that one up. It was all over 10 grand. I didn't realize that 10 grand was a drop in the bucket to this guy. He did not care. What he cared about was making his pregnant wife happy and getting them a house before the baby came along. I kind of screwed that up, okay? Because I had an idea of what I thought that they wanted. So it's important to identify what is it that they want, not what you want. What is winning? Mike, what is winning in a negotiation?
Making sure your clients get what they want.
What they want, right? So if you felt like a client was overpaying for a house, have you ever had a client that you felt were overpaying for a home? Okay, tell me about it.
Multiple times in situations where you get, especially first-time buyers in the market, in the hot spring market, and people are bidding over and over and over and over the top, even the asking price, and you're doing comps, and it's kind of like, I don't even know if I'll hold the comp numbers. That's usually where I feel like they're overpaying for a price, because I think there's more work that needs to be done in the house than what it's worth.
Sure.
I think it's worth.
Sure, and everyone's kind of dipping their toes in that spring market for pricing, right? They're throwing things out. Where's it gonna go? Are we at 3% higher or 5% higher, right? So when that happened, how did you feel? Just think about it at a time that's happened. How did you feel when the negotiation was done? Were you upset with yourself? Did you feel bad? Did you feel like you let them down?
No, because my job is to educate them in the process and give them the options and explain the fact that this may be a little higher than what it should be on the market, but if this is something that you really want and it meets all your criteria, then that's your decision.
There you go. So you know your role in the transaction. Your role isn't to be the end all be all. You should not pay $1 more for this house. If you do, you're getting screwed. You don't want to do that, right? At the end of the day, let's talk about that. So how much over? 5 grand? 10 grand?
Yeah.
Okay. Who here knows what 10 grand is a month? What's 10 grand a month in payment?
40, 50 bucks.
$50.
Okay. Sorry, guys. We don't get to go to Ruby Tuesdays this week. Okay? Because we have a house that we like, right? And we're done with this process. I'm sure a lot of times you're on the other side and you start to realize, especially in that spring market, $200,000 or less, and these people have been beat up. You know, we've looked at 50 homes and we walked in and it sold as soon as we got there. We're like, what offer? What are you talking about? Multiple offers? It happens, right? It's tough. So we have to understand that those people on the other side, they might be thinking, you know, for this 40, 50 bucks a month, man, I'm ready for this process to be over. Is that a lose for us? Does that mean that we didn't do our job? No, absolutely not. Okay, so that's an important thing to remember here. So no-oriented questions. So this is going to come down to, this will be one of those things that maybe you're negotiating with your client at this point, or maybe you're even trying to get someone like your client to have a conversation, right? Would it be crazy if, hear me out, would it be crazy if we went $5,000 high on this side? Maybe that thing that you're worried about, maybe it'll come up inspection, right? You know, I know that you're worried about the roof, Mike. I know that you're worried about the roof. But would it be crazy if we gave them what they want because we're in a multiple offer situation to get the home and then let an inspector point out that the roof is an issue? Because at that point in time, I mean, who are we to say that the roof isn't there? Would it be crazy for us to do that? Is it crazy, Mike? Don't you feel like saying no? You feel like saying no. You don't feel like saying, yeah, that's crazy. It's a no-oriented question. I do that because who wants to say yes? Here's the thing. All salespeople and negotiators, we want to hear yes. Yes means we get to say it. Yes, 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 yes. But the truth is that no is actually more powerful. Okay? Because if your client does not feel like they can say no to you, they're not your client for long. They're not at all. In fact, as soon as this deal goes south, they're leaving. They're going with somebody else. You have to give them the ability to say no and to speak freely, right? If they feel like you're always trying to get that yes and you're always trying to back them into a corner so that they say yes, they're not going to trust you, right? And it's all about what? Know you, like you, trust you, right? Trust is currency. So if I don't trust you and every time that we have a conversation, you're trying to push me to say yes, I feel dirty. I feel like you're a used car salesman trying to get me, man. You know, I don't like it, okay? So by giving them no-oriented questions, it actually gives them freedom, right? And then they'll start to open up as a result. But if I say, is it crazy? If I did this, would that be wrong? You know, I know you're really busy. Is now a bad time to talk about this inspection done? No, I'm good, right? Or they'll say yes and get it out of the way, and you're no longer wasting. They might very well say, yeah, actually, that's terrible. I don't want to do that. Squash. Now it's no longer a fake yes. So I want to talk about the yeses. All right. So there are 3 types of yeses. So I've got a commitment yes, which is what everybody wants, right? A commitment yes is I want, you know, we're going to sign this document. We're going to do this offer. We're excited. You can hear it when someone says it, right? And then I've got a confirmation, right? So my confirmation yes, and so that everyone's following along here, I'll come back to you. Oh, I did skip a little bit. We'll go into it here, but so I've got my confirmation. Yes, I like beer. I'll come back a little bit, but that seemed like a good segue. Yes. Do you like going out at night? Yeah, I like going out at night. You like going for a walk? Yeah. I mean, These are confirmation yeses that really truthfully anyone's going to say yes to, right? And then you've got the counterfeit yes, which is really the one that we don't want to hear. So when I ask a no-oriented question, that eliminates these counterfeit yeses. Sometimes someone will say yes to you to get you out the door, to get you off the phone, to, yes, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Now, I had to learn a really hard lesson, and I learned it. Mr. Seth Walker told me this, but I didn't listen. He said, you cannot convince someone to buy a house. You can't do it. You can't talk someone into buying a house. Here's why. How many different chances do they have out of it? Well, you've got the initial negotiation, right? You've got that inspection. Beyond that, you may have the termite. You may have the appraisal. You may have the survey, right? They want to go through certain things, the survey. And then you have that final walkthrough. And Matt, you remember this one? You remember this one. You guys were all together. This guy, I'm still working with him on other things, and we'll eventually get them a house. But this guy was very picky, wanted to buy a house. Him and his girlfriend, they're now married. We walk into a house, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I say, because I'm Mr. Slick Willie here, all right, I think I know what the hell I'm doing. And I said, oh, man, if you guys don't buy this house, I don't know what you're doing. This one's perfect. Big mistake. He was like, yeah. I could see in his eye he wasn't sure, but she was. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. We go through everything. The inspection is super clean, but he wanted any and every little thing, right? I ended up getting it. You know, the agent on the other side was good. But then we come to the final walkthrough, and there's some moisture staining from one of the windows in the foyer. And he says, no, that's causing damage here. I'm not buying this house. It's the final walkthrough. We're closing tomorrow. I'm not buying this house. Nope. I knew when he walked in and what he was doing this, he wasn't buying that house. He just found something to not buy the house. Do you remember that, Matt? The day before closing, we had to spend a week all together on what were the legalities of him walking away at this point. Do they actually have to fix that? Was there real damage? All that kind of stuff. It was a big deal. Matt's like, I don't even remember, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it.
It was a big deal. I promise you, I lost 6 months of life on this old heart over that. Okay, it was tough. The man had $5,000 down on earnest money on this house because we were in a multiple offer situation, and we wanted to get it. I ended up getting $2,500 of it back, but it was hard to do. These people are like, no, we're supposed to be closing on this other house today. We're suing you. I talked him into buying that house that night. I talked him into continuing things with the inspection. I know that I did that. Don't do that. Don't do that, because that's a counterfeit yes. And a counterfeit yes is only going to hurt you in the end. It's going to waste a ton of time. You're going to lose sleep. I promise you, you're going to lose sleep. Don't go for it. Okay, so I do want to back up a little bit. Let's talk about the BATNA. This is an important one. So it's kind of an age-old thing. And we have to ask ourselves when we're negotiating in situations. Mike, let's go back to your situation there. We talked about some first-time home buyers that are buying, maybe paying a little bit too much, right? Okay. What was their alternative?
Staying out of the market and seeing if they could find something else and starting that same process over again.
Was that realistic that they were going to find anything that was less?
On that house? No.
Okay. So here's the thing is we have to ask ourselves, what is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? That is a big one. That should always be in the back of your mind. Now, how you present it is tough, right? Because again, you never want your client to feel like they have their back up against the wall. You never want them to feel like oh, well, I mean, if I don't do this, then it's nothing, because things will go south really quick, right? However, you present other options. And if you present those other options and they see that that is actually not a better alternative because it doesn't have the loft that they want. Yeah, that one's right across the street from a school. I'm gonna have to deal with school traffic. Yeah, that one doesn't have 2 bathrooms, you know? That one doesn't have the man cave that I want. Okay, so what's your best alternative to this? If I present that to you, you feel like you have options. I'm asking you, we've got this deal right now. You guys got to pay $5 grand more, all right? That's what we're wanting. It's that $40 a month, $50 a month kind of thing. Or you can try that other one that you guys didn't really like. I don't know that it's there. I call the agent if you'd like me to. No, I don't want to do that. We like this one. It's about presenting that best alternative, right? Okay, so that's a big one. Best alternative. Disc. Oh, we did talk a little bit about tactical empathy, right? So this is a big one. I talked about it a little bit with Matt, but again, making sure that people know that you care about the other side and you're hearing them. Everybody has a sign, an invisible sign that they walk around with that says, "Make me feel important." Okay? Make me feel pretty. All right? The way that you make someone feel important is first by listening to them and making sure that they're heard, right? They want to be heard. The only way that you can make sure that they know that they've been heard is to validate what they've said. You got to honor reason. So this will go back to the Code of Trust. Robin Dreek, I recommend that book for everyone. It's in the resources here at the end. You've got to, for at least a moment, understand where they're coming from. Now, you don't have to understand their emotion. In fact, there's some studies out there that you shouldn't focus on their emotion, you should focus on their thought process, right? What are they thinking, and what would lead them to that conclusion? And if you keep that curiosity of what would lead them to that conclusion, you will have empathy, and your amygdala will not be hijacked. You cannot be pissed off at someone and curious at the same time. I'm going to say that again. You cannot be pissed off at someone and curious at the same time. What would lead someone to be so rude to me right now? Wait a minute. What happened in this transaction that is making them react this way? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry. Apologizing. I'm sorry. You know what? What happened there? Oh, well, you know, you guys did this, you guys said that. You know what? I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to do that at all. I can completely understand how that would upset you. Tactical empathy. I'm saying, I'm identifying and validating why they should be upset. Has anyone negotiated something because you were so busy? You negotiated something through a text that really shouldn't have been through a text. Anyone? You ever said anything through a text ever that you probably shouldn't have said through a text? And then they're pissed off, right? And you answer the phone and they're freaking out. And you're, whoa, what's going on? I'm sorry. That is not what I meant at all. But I can totally see how you thought that. That's a big one. I can totally see how you thought that. Because without validating their response, you are telling them that they don't have permission to feel the way that they feel. That doesn't work, right? You can't tell someone, you shouldn't be mad about that. Why are you upset? You shouldn't be upset about that. Matt, why are you going off on me? You got no right. What do you mean I have no right? You said this, you said that, now we're fighting. Are we going to get anywhere on this deal? No, probably not. Okay? So it's about giving them that validation. Disc. Who here? Now, I know you, at least you three heard me talk about disc a lot when we were talking about the CRM. Who went and dove into that? Okay, so let's talk about disc. Michelle Kelly, when I was getting my license, talked a lot about disc, and she said, "Bryan, you're a driver." I was like, "That's bullshit. I'm not." I am. So personalities, this doesn't dive into the why that somebody is. It just says this is their personality, this is how they respond, this is how they communicate, and that's just all there is to it. It doesn't dive into where they came from, if they were beat as a child, or any of that kind of stuff. It just says this is who they are. Matt, who on the disc, who do you think you are?
I probably have like, in the other part of this, probably more of an affordable type personality, a little bit of a drunk driver. I like to be, big task, not very good with detail.
Okay.
You know,
So I look at Matt and I say, Matt is steady. He's a steady person. Matt likes to hug on people. He likes to love on people, right, Matt? I mean, Matt wants to make people feel welcome, and he's always thinking outside of himself. And he likes it when things are smooth, and that he wants to be friends. He wants to make things smooth. Now, a driver, I think about other people that are drivers, and they're shorter, and you'll start to see, so everyone's kind of an amalgam, first off, let me throw that out there. Everyone's kind of an amalgam of these traits. But in certain situations, they shine through heavier, and especially in negotiation when things are, the heat is on, right? You'll start to see certain personality types rise to the top. And I would say that if I look at the four horsemen, right? So I like to call the broker owners the four horsemen. If I look at Shane, I feel like Shane is a little bit shorter in the conversations that I'm going to have with him. He's going to say exactly what he has to say. It's going to be good information. It's not as though Shane doesn't care. It's that's the way that Shane talks. He's pretty short. He's pretty to the point. I'm not going to say that he doesn't care about the way that you perceive it or your feelings. That's not it at all. However, I think that he thinks of himself and knows that he could take those words and he wouldn't worry about the emotion behind it. He'd hear it for what it is and it'd be done. So as a result, Shane, when he's having conversations with you, it's a little bit shorter, a little bit straighter to the point. That's his style. He's a driver. Okay. Then you've got more of an influencer, someone who loves to talk, right? So I would say you're an amalgam of that influencer as well. Matt wants to have a good conversation with you, and influencers, you'll also find, they're usually that person at the party. You walk in and they're there, man. They're buddy with everyone. They know everyone. They're high-fiving, right? They seem to be those people that know everyone. People are attracted to them. Okay. Then you've got that steady who, he might not be, or he or she might not be all over the place, but again, people really like them. They like to put their arms around them. They are the people that if you're having an issue, you can talk to them. You can call them and they would lend you an ear. All right. That's that steady person. That C, that conscientious person, that is more of talk to me about numbers. Talk to me about numbers. Talk to me about data. Their conversations aren't going to go into touchy-feely. They're going to want to talk about, they're usually doctors, lawyers, scientists, engineers, right? Their mind works a little bit differently, and the conversations that they like to have are different. Why is this important? Because, again, we are negotiating with our client. I need to present certain information to them. For instance, we're in that negotiation with Mike, and I know that this gentleman here, he just graduated from Iowa State. He is an engineering student, right? Okay. What does he want to know? He wants to know the comps. He wants to know exactly how much he's paying over it, right? He wants to know, well, what are the comps say? Pull up the comps. How did you get to the value that you got to? How did you make those adjustments? Now, for some of us drivers, we're like, look, man, it just is what it is. All right? We, as drivers, it's difficult sometimes for us to slow down. We know the answer. We know that this house is overpriced by $5,000 because we do this. This is what we do every day. But we got to remember, they don't. We've got to break it down to them, and we've got to show them the adjustments. We've got to slow it down. Okay. C's are usually a little bit slower to make their decisions, by the way. They really want to think on it. They really want to break it up. And by the way, if it doesn't make sense, they're not buying it, right? That's all there is to it. So let's go back to that D. The D, they'll be hyped up, man. Let's get it. What are they focused on? They're focused on winning. They have to feel like they won in this negotiation. Now, that means they have to see value as well, but they're not going to break down those numbers as hard, right? Now, this is a very general thing, by the way, right? And no one is better than the other, right? I want to throw all that out here, okay? But the D, usually short to it, give me the numbers, I'm going to analyze it pretty quickly, and you know what? It either is or it isn't, right? You know, they're not going to get touchy-feely about it. The I's, they're going to have a little, they want to talk through it, and they want neat ideas on how to come together with a deal. What if we did this, this, and this, right? They want to explore the options of it, and they want to talk through it. It's not just, here's my offer number, here is I want this for closing costs, I want this warranty, and we're done. Instead, they want to talk a little bit about, yeah, you know what if we did this closing date a little bit differently, and you know what about this over here? They want to talk through it, and they want creative ideas. So if you have a chance, come up with a creative idea with either A, your client, or B, that agent on the other side, and make them feel like there's like we're comrades here, we're friends in this, we're gonna get this together. Especially those agents on the other side, you know what, I didn't think about that. Bam, that's what they want to do. And then you come back to those C's, you know, that are a little, or excuse me, the S's rather, that are a little bit more steady. From what I find with those that are super steady, and especially if they're an SC, like I said, remember everyone's a kind of combination. I've had a few SCs, and they're really smart. They're soft-spoken, right? They like to wear green sweaters like this, right? They're a little bit softer in their approach. Do you talk loud?
No, not really.
No, you're kind of softer on it. He's really steady, right? Now, steady people are great, right? Because they're not going to get irate about it, right? They're gonna keep it down. However, in stressful situations, steady people also, it's been my experience, will be passive aggressive. And when I say that, right, I mean, especially if something doesn't feel right to them. If something doesn't feel right, they'll go down that road for a long time. And then finally they're just like, you know, I'm sorry, you know, it's not going to work out. So you kind of got to beware of those steadies because they don't want to be aggressive and short. At least the D's will tell you, kick rocks, we're done here, right? Okay. So everyone, it really comes down to, you have to understand who you're talking to for your client and who you're talking to on the other end of the line. I'm sure we've, again, all been with agents where it's just like, that was really short. I mean, gosh, the guy doesn't even want to talk. I mean, the hell with that guy. Anyone had that situation when we were on the phone with someone? Like, hey man, I'm busy, blah, 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 we're done. Anyone? I need a show of hands. Anyone work with a D? Okay. What about an I? You know, someone who just wants to talk, which by the way, keep them talking, baby. Information is currency. Keep them talking, okay? I'm a talker. I got to shut myself up, right? We're going to talk about dynamic silence and how that's a big one here, right? Got to shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Say something, be quiet. Especially when we're talking about labels. We'll talk about that real quick. If I label something, I'm going to say it, and then I should shut up. I didn't do that with Matt. I was trying to keep him talking, right? And try to keep the conversation and make it feel very natural. But especially if I'm delivering bad news with that accusation audit and then that label, I'm going to say it, shut the hell up. Keep quiet. Let them talk. validate them as they say whatever they're going to say, and keep it going. That all make sense? Any questions so far about any of this?
So a lot of this has been discussing like over the phone contacts, like voice to voice. What about like text messaging? How do you differentiate with?
You don't.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna butcher his name. Greg Boganowski. Anyhow. He's supposed to be this great negotiator, Harvard-trained real estate negotiator. Tom Ferry boosts him up. He says, do not negotiate, and I'm guilty of it. In fact, Jenny downstairs and I have been negotiating via text and via email. I feel comfortable doing that with Jenny because Jenny and I have done deals. We see each other, we've developed rapport, and we're probably going to give each other some grace. But you should all know this. It actually is perceived as negative. Text and emails are actually perceived immediately negative by people. That is a psychological truth. Okay, there's a lot of data on it. So when you say certain things via text or via email, they can be misconstrued. So make it, whenever you are doing those kinds of things, make it not important, and definitely don't make it bad news. Who here has made the mistake of texting your client bad news? No one? You're doing better than me. I had to fight that bullet the hard way. You don't do it. Don't do it. Whenever you're given that sort of bad news, or you really need to get some information, call. Pick up the phone and call. Okay? I like to send over an offer and then call the agent. There's been a handful of times in my life when I was super busy and I didn't do that, and I always regret it. Every time. You know, I want to call them and I'm going to say, hey, just submitted an offer. A, does anyone else have their Gmail configured where you get updates and primary and all that kind of stuff? For whatever reason, mine always goes to the updates when I get .loop, right? So I want to make sure that the agent actually got my offer, right? I want to make sure that, hey, by the way, you didn't miss it in that barrage of emails that you're getting right now because you got a super hot property. So I want to make sure that there's that. I want to make sure that, you know, and I want to ask them if they have any questions over it. When I say to you, hey, I just sent over an offer, and you pull it up, and I say, do you have any questions over it? What am I actually saying?
What do you think?
What do you think? What do you think of this offer? And I'm going to get a response. I promise you, your voice is going to, you can't fight it. You're either going to be like, oh yeah, this is a great offer, or you're like, yeah, you know, not bad. I'll present it, right? And I kind of know where we're at from there. Okay. So avoid texts and emails if a phone call can be made. There are certain things in this business that you really need to identify and say, no, this should be a text or an email because I don't have time, right? Or use certain tools. You know, I started realizing that I was spending too much time calling agents to schedule final walkthroughs and schedule inspections and stuff. Showing that. There it is. I put it in. They'll let me know if it doesn't work. 95% of the time it's going to work. They're going to figure it out. Okay. Otherwise, you can get, especially with an I, I'm calling another me on the other line, and they're like, man, I gotta go. Right? So again, identify those things that you can do on text or email, and then identify those things that you can. Okay. So we talked about DISC. I want to take that into the 3 types of negotiators. Okay, and again, I feel like there's a combination of these, but this definitely ties into the DISC. You've got your assertive, you've got your analytical, and you've got your accommodating. Okay, so your assertive again, in my opinion, I tie that back and I say that's probably a D, right? That's kind of that D personality. They are very assertive, they're very straight to the point, they're gonna say this, and they will get upset if you rattle their cage, okay? Doesn't mean, by the way, getting upset in a negotiation is actually the worst thing you can do. Trying to strong arm someone, it never works. It just doesn't. Okay. So, but being upfront about what you want is actually helpful. So there's two sides to that assertive, right? At least you know where you stand with that client. Okay. The analytical, that again kind of ties back to that C. You know, they really need to hear all the information. They really need to hear the data, right? And by the way, they pride themselves on that data. They pride themselves on knowing exactly where they're at. They want to be in the know. So if you're too busy with them, there's someone who you don't want to text. Don't text them. Give them a call and make sure that they feel like they have time to go over the data and ask all the questions. Here's the thing. That gentleman that I said that I talked into buying the house, he's a doctor. We didn't go over comps and all that kind of stuff either. But as we were having conversations and getting into things, I started realizing that he wanted this. Now, truthfully, between us and everyone out there, I feel like he was probably a little concerned that he bought a house with someone that he wasn't sure he was going to spend the rest of his life with. Just be honest. That has since changed, so I think we're good. And by the way, we're back out looking at houses a year later, okay? However, I think that at least I noticed that there were holes in my game there, okay? I needed to make sure that he had data, okay? I'm sure we've all dealt with people like that. You got to make sure you make time for them. Those drivers, they just want to know, you know, they're pretty quick to it, you know, and they'll make decisions fast. The accommodator. The accommodator is, again, I kind of go back to that I-S-S-I. I want to put your arms around you. We want to be friends. And we want to collaborate on this deal together and come up with good ideas. Okay, but those are going to be really important. So you've got your disc, and this is how people are in their personalities. However, there are certain traits, like I said, that are going to come out in stressful situations, and how they negotiate. That's when it really comes out. Right? When someone's negotiating, that's why we kind of break those up. Trust. I've said it before, say it again, because I can't say it enough. Trust is currency. I have to trust you. Mike, if we're having a conversation and I say to you, I'm going to offer 15 grand less for this $200,000 house in Beaverdale, what are you going to say to me?
Well, we can write up that offer. Why are you wanting it offered at 15,000 less than what's supposed to that?
Okay, Mike is very good. Mike said yes first. He led with yes. He did not say, no, that's not going to work. He said yes, and then he turned it around and said, why? Why do you want that? What led you to that conclusion that that is the offer that we should make? Mike's damn good. I trust Mike. I trust Mike because Mike didn't immediately say no. Mike did not invalidate what I said. Mike never said, that's not going to work, man. Now, I'm sure we have clients that we've known for 25, 30 years that we can say, hey, bro, that's not right. Matt, you probably know people that you can say that to and feel pretty open. Right. But you got to get there. And in this day and age, I mean, sometimes we meet someone, we don't know them very well. We're showing them those houses that are going to go super fast. We're writing offers before we really know that much about them. Now, that's just happenstance. Now, we don't want that to happen, right? We want to try to know as much as we can, but man, sometimes like the market is moving so fast and they know it, so they're ready to make an offer. We haven't really developed that rapport yet, that trust. So by not validating them, by not honoring the reason, when I say reason, how they came to their conclusion, you are honoring that reason because you're asking for it. You want to know, how did you come to that conclusion? by doing that, he's developing trust. I have to do that, right? If instead I said no, or if I said, how'd you come up with that, man? Or what makes you want to do that? See my facial expressions on that, right? They don't trust me anymore. Trust goes out the window. And every time that you blow a little bit of trust, right? It's kind of like one step forward, two steps back, right? You know, if you blow trust early on in a relationship, it's really hard. In fact, damn near impossible to get them to trust you later on, okay? And if someone doesn't trust you in the negotiation, they're not going to be honest with you, okay? And if your client isn't honest with you in that negotiation, how can you possibly negotiate properly on their behalf? You don't know what's really important to them. They're not telling you. They're not giving you that information. You have no idea that their mom is going to move in with them, and that's a huge deal of why this has to be arranged. You're showing them 2 stories, right? You have to understand. And this house is everything that they said that they want. It's the right price. It's right here in this location. It's going to go super fast. Why are they not willing to pay $5,000 more on this house? We know that it's only $40 a month. That seems to make sense to them. What is it? Mom's moving in 6 months. Mom's moving in. It's got to be arranged, right? So there are all those things. Trust, trust, trust. But I'm not going to give you that information until I have developed trust. I have to trust you. So how do I develop trust? First off, this is really hard for a guy like me, kind of a prick. I have to suspend my ego, right? So I don't know better. Do you know better than them, Mike? Do you know better about the market than your client?
Yes.
You do. But does that need to be on display all the time? No, it doesn't, okay? You might know better. You have been down this road. But if I say over and over again, every now and then you can kind of slip a little in there, you know. Yeah, you know, I've been down this road. Here's what I'd like to do. Would it be crazy if we did this just to try to protect your interests on this? What did I do there? What did I do there? I asked a no-oriented question, didn't I? Would it be crazy if I did this to protect your interests? Because I'm thinking about you, all right? Think about those patterns. Getting back to it, but if I say over and over again, it's not going to work. I've done this before. What do you think of me? What do you think of me, Shane? If I say, that ain't going to work, man. I've done this a handful of times. Watch yourself.
I'm thinking this could be different. You know, I'm like, just because it happened to you doesn't mean it's going to happen this way. I want to proceed my way.
Right. And whose money is it?
It's their money.
That's right. It's their money. So here's this slick dressed guy who's trying to talk me out of my money, tell me how I should do this. It's a very different thing from looking at him and saying, you know what? I trust this guy. He's my fiduciary. I can trust that he's got my best interest. It's important to develop that trust. So again, suspending your ego, right? You're not Mr. Big Shot. Don't tell them unless they ask. Like I've got one client. He sells cars. He manages the dealership. He wants to know my numbers, man. He gets excited about it. He's like, how many up to? I'm, oh man, we're hitting 80. We're going to hit 85 this year. He's the only one that I would do that with, period, because he gets excited about it. That's something that we have in common. We like that drive of the sale. I don't want to tell everyone how busy I am. I don't want to tell everyone that I've got 80 other deals. Why? Because A, you got a huge ego, bro. Second off, you ain't got no time for me. Where do I fit in with this? Are you going to make sure that I'm getting the service that I need when things go south? It's important. Moving on, then the validate others. We talked about that. You know, we've got to validate where they're coming from. Okay, we've got to validate their concerns. It is important how they are viewing the deal, how they see it, not how we see it. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. That makes sense. I'm validating you. Is it hard to say that makes sense? Is it hard to say I can see that? By the way, do I see that? Do I hear that? Do I feel that? I'm gonna let you guys in on something, right? So has anyone ever heard of NLP? Remember I said I wouldn't throw any sneaky beat stuff? I'm gonna throw a little bit, just a little bit. NLP, neuro-linguistics programming. Check out Tony Robbins, look into that a little bit. NLP is again, it's kind of going back to DISC to some degree. It's personalities and how people talk about things. And if you can talk their talk, if you can walk their walk, if you can match and mirror their body language, those types of things, as well as their voice, the speed of their voice, right? You know, some people talk really fast and people talk slower, right? If you can match those kinds of things, you're going to do a lot better. Well, it's something like 75% of people in this world, they're visual learners, right? And then you've got like another 20% auditory, and then the rest are going to be that kinesthetic. So I see what you're saying. It's a really safe one. I see what you're saying. And I know a lot of people on the surface, they don't think that that means anything. It does mean something, especially when we're in tough times. When we are negotiating and things are going south, I need to speak their language, man. If they're auditory, and I know that because they're going to talk about, you know, when I was listening to this and I was hearing this, lots of musicians actually fall into that category. They want to know that you're hearing them. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Now I see what you mean. I feel you on that one. I feel that. I understand. That's like kinesthetic. Think about those things, all right? We'll move on. Be non-judgmental. I got to make sure that I don't judge what they're saying, and I'm not judging them, their decision. Has anyone been in a situation where a client said something and you're like, how the hell did you come up with that? Where don't do it. It's hard, especially when you're stressed out. You've been doing deal after deal after deal, and you know things are falling apart, right? You know, who here has had a week where you've got like 4 deals falling apart? Yeah, it's tough. You gotta buck up, buttercup. Okay, it's rough, but you have to make sure that you don't. How did you come up, man? Don't judge them. Don't judge them. You have no idea what led them to that conclusion. Maybe their damn brother-in-laws, man. Maybe their damn brother-in-law said, you're overpaying for that house. You're paying too much for that house. Now here we are in the inspection, and they want everything. Because they feel like they're overpaying for this house. You know what? They're going to show their brother-in-law that they negotiated hard. The brother-in-law didn't know anything. But I can't say, this is ridiculous, guys. He might actually think that his brother-in-law is pretty smart. I don't want to judge him for that, right? Okay, so it's a real vague example, but my point is don't be judgmental, right? Avoid that. Honor reason. That kind of comes back to that not being judgmental. It's like, okay, you know what? I didn't think about it from that perspective, but that makes sense. I didn't see it that way to begin with, but that makes sense. How you arrive to that. Now, by the way, I cannot suspend judgment, and I cannot honor reason if I'm not curious. I have to be curious. How did you come to that conclusion? And I got to make sure that I'm watching my tone when I'm asking those questions. Because I can't say, Travis, why would you say that? Does that work?
I'm already shelled in and after that.
Already shelled in. Because we say to our kids, they're this big, why would you do that? As they spill water all over the floor, right? And they throw ketchup. Why would you do that? You can't start there. So again, that's that NLP. You've got to say something along the lines of, okay, I can see that. What was it that led you there? Or tell me about, this is a really good one. Tell me about X. Okay, so Robin Dreek talks about this a little bit, and he said that he's got a friend who's a reporter. He's I want to say he's a baseball reporter. Anyhow, long story short, what he says is, if you say, tell us about this, because coaches, they like to make reporters seem like idiots. You guys did this play. Why did you do that play? well, we did that play because of this, moron, right? That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna turn that around. However, if you say, you guys look really good out there. I saw that you ran this play. Tell us about this. Not why did you do that? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Can I ask you about this? That works with some people, right? But tell me, or hey, I was curious about this, and just, Mason, I was curious about that deal that you were working on the other day. I know that you got the showing and all that, but I was kind of curious about the conversation. You're going to start talking to me about the conversation. You're going to start giving me details. I'm curious about it. Now, did I have to say specifically what I was curious about? I was curious about the conversation. I didn't say, why did you say such and such? You're going to start going down that road and taking me there anyhow, right? It'll probably come up in a non-confrontational way, okay? And then be generous. At the end of the day, we all have stuff going on. And especially in this world that we're dealing with COVID right now. Nobody knows what the other person is dealing with, right? And sometimes you'll find these black swans, if you will, things that you didn't see in the negotiation, or things that you didn't see in the overall picture, because people didn't want to share. For example, had a client, again, I didn't, started out at one price for searching for things, went to another price, trying to negotiate with builders, and nothing seemed to make sense. Nothing seemed to make sense for what their actions that they were doing. Come to find out, and I did know that they were pregnant. They hadn't announced it yet. Come to find out they lost a baby. I had no idea that was the case. And in some of these conversations, nothing was making sense, and I was getting frustrated. To be honest with you, I was getting frustrated. I couldn't understand where they were coming from and why none of this was adding up. And I felt like I was being, like my time was being wasted. My chain was being jerked. And then I found out that they lost the kid. They lost the baby. And, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Give grace and be generous to that other side. You don't know what's going on. And they may not be trying to jerk your chain. Just because an agent didn't get back to you. Now I want to talk a little bit because I'm sorry. What's your name? Okay. So Ed mentioned earlier that, sometimes the agent doesn't get back to them in a timeline. And it's really easy for us to be like, what the hell? Why didn't this person get back to me in a timely manner? And by the way, negotiation, you should, as much as you can, within reason, try to keep that window down. So I agree with that. You should try to keep that timeline short. However, you don't know what they're dealing with on the other side, okay? And you don't know that this agent is actually they're actually not dragging you around and jerking your chain. They actually haven't been in touch with their client because their client's grandma is sick and they went to go and visit her, and there are certain things that are more important than your damn deal. There are certain things that can wait. I had an agent when I had my baby. I had a deal put together, and in the inspection, roof damage from a storm. And I said, all right, that's cool. We'll get someone out there and they'll take a look at it. The insurance company. We got it in writing, we're good. Everything's good. My wife goes into labor. I'm sitting there bedside just after we have the baby. And this agent on the other side, she knows, by the way, where I'm at. I've disclosed that information. And she is on me and on me and on me and on me about getting this insurance adjuster out to this house. By the way, I don't have any control over how fast this insurance adjuster, what am I gonna do? Call State Farm? You guys need to get someone out there right now. I am in a very important moment in my life, staring at my wife and my newly born first child. and this lady says to me, you need to do this, you need to do that, somebody needs to be taking care of this while you're away. How do you think that sat with me? Not good at all. I hate that agent now. I hate her. I don't want to show a single one of her houses. I actually had to not that long ago. And I negotiated her down.
Wouldn't have to rush there.
Is that the grace?
She actually told me that just because you have a child doesn't mean you get to walk away from your business. Now, there was literally nothing on the table that wasn't already worked out. Literally nothing. You're just waiting on an insurance adjuster. There's not an issue there. My point is that she only could think about her. She didn't buy any grace with me. I don't trust her. I'll never trust her in any deal that we do. Okay? She's always looking for an angle, and she's not a person that I want to deal with. So if there are two houses side by side, I know which one looks better to me. This house is way better priced. Probably is, to be honest with you. My point is that you've got to remember that you're dealing with humans on the other side, especially when things start going south, especially when things start to fall apart. You're dealing with a human who is dealing with a set of other humans that has a family, that has to get to school tomorrow, that has to eat, that has to put a roof over their head. You have to remember those kinds of things when you're having conversations with people, when you're negotiating. Again, negotiation is not winner take all, zero-sum game pit bull. It's not, even though I went pit bull there for a minute, okay? It's not. You have to make sure that those people on the other side are also all part of it, and you do, in fact, honor that they have a life. They're human. They have things going on. Now, there's a line to all of that, but don't be rude if an agent doesn't get back to you in a certain amount of time. Don't be rude if an agent gives you information that you don't want to hear. Don't be rude if a client gives you information you don't want to hear. Accept it, honor the reason, be curious, be non-judgmental about it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If you would have been the agent on the other side, would you have said something like, hey, I know you've got some important stuff going on, I'm gonna let my client know. Do you think I could tell them, just give them an approximate time when you might be able to respond? So just to set up a,
Absolutely.
so you know, is it 24, 48 hours, how much
Absolutely.
grace, if I use that word, do you need?
Sure. Absolutely.
Would
So
that have been a better way to handle it coming at you?
100%. And the truth is at that point in time, you know, I said, hey, you know what, from what I'm understanding, and I did say this, but not in near the way. I said, you know, the adjuster's going to be out there on Wednesday. You know, hey, I appreciate that. You know, the adjuster's going to be out there Wednesday. You know, I'll keep you updated on it. I'll let you know as soon as I can. You know, in the meantime, my assistant's available. You know, if something comes up, just let me know.
I will also say this, because you said something that I mentioned about being the agent that other people want to work with. When we're dealing in a low inventory market, you're going to be part of multiple offers. It's going to be you. It's going to be Shane on one side, it could be Mason, and it matters when you're the listing agent. It matters that I know that other agent is a professional, a true pro. And when all things are equal, right, and sometimes they are, I'm going to try to talk my buyer into the agent that's a pro.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell them why too. It's like, hey, I know this agent. I love working with this agent. She or he is a true pro. And they're probably going to, if I've built trust and confidence and they trust me, right?
Absolutely.
That's what's going to happen.
And-
I'm sorry, I have to catch out.
No, you're good. And we absolutely have been there. We've all absolutely, I mean, anyone who's been in enough deals, again, you're going to be, you know, there's a couple agents where, you know, if that agent right there would be presenting me an offer and all things equal, I'd be like, you know, I tell you what, Matt over here, real great guy. I know him. I know he's not going to jerk us around. I had a couple deals with her before. It didn't go great. Now, we should, by ethics, watch how far we take that. We can't simply say, I don't like this guy, you shouldn't accept their offer, blah, blah, blah. You cannot spin those kinds of things. You should not do that. Now, I agree with what Matt said, though. That's about the extent of it. That's about as far as that should go. It shouldn't be, absolutely, we should not look at this house and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to do that. So I want to talk about stages of the deal. This is probably more for, I guess, newer agents here. So the stages of the deal, we have the offer, we have the counter offer. How to present that, okay? So who here knows kind of the basic terms? Well, let's take that back. Who doesn't know the basic terms of an offer? Who has not written an offer in this room? Who's not written an offer and who's written one offer? Okay. All right. What terms can be or cannot be taken off of that contract? Travis? I'm thinking about the contract. I'm thinking about all that language that's in that contract.
Okay.
What can I change? What is boilerplate? That's all there is to it.
I don't know, four things, like, are you asking like four things to have your client, in my opinion, I believe that instead of the misconception of the contract being against you, it's really for you as far as for the client.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, that's how I look at it. So I think the appraisal inspections are important times that you can, have an opportunity for your client if something does happen to kind of pull that string. Regarding these stages of the deal, though, is what you're talking
Yeah.
about?
So do I need to make it subject to appraisal?
To bet for your client's interest, depending on the situation. Like, again, have they seen others? I guess yes. Yeah.
The word is maybe, right?
Yeah.
The word is maybe, right? Because if we're in multiple, you guys,
Right, exactly.
you guys know that it's a hot deal. You know that other people are willing to pay for it. It's probably going to be praised. If you're comfortable with that, just take it off the table.
Right.
Now, if we take it off the table, what happens if it doesn't appraise?
I mean, you're still in that contract as far
That's why you
as
get them down.
contractually liable.
So what do I got to do? I mean, so if I say that it's not subject to appraisal, my bank, because I'm getting it financed, still wants an appraisal, right? So I can't actually take the appraisal completely off the table unless I'm in a cash offer.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I say to myself, okay, I can't really take that off the table. What is the risk for my clients if the home doesn't appraise and we did not make it subject to appraisal?
To lose the home would be, I mean.
No, because they're going to lose their earnest money and technically they're supposed to perform. Right? Okay, so really what it means is, guys, I hope you have that extra money in the bank. Because if we take that appraisal off and it comes in $5,000 low, you need to cover that money. Do you have that money? So there are certain things that some people would just simply say, we just don't write it that way. We just don't take the appraisal off the table, right? We've kind of got some heuristics or general rules of thumb, when we're writing offers. As far as inspection periods and all those kinds of things, right? But there are certain terms that can come out of there, right? It's not subject to this. It's not subject to that. Now, there are also other things that, you got to be careful as far as the legality of rolling with the boilerplate. And really what it comes down to is, trying to get into lawyer language, right? Don't speak lawyer language, try to be as clear as you can, but there's all sorts of things that addendums can take off the table, right? You can cross through a lot of things, okay? So a lot of people don't quite understand that, and I think to myself, what are the ways that I can make negotiation? Because on the basic level, we're kind of looking at the dollar amount, right? But what about the terms and the types of financing? Okay. Here's an example that is unfortunate. I'm looking at two offers. One of them let's say apples to apples as far as the numbers go, right? One of them is a VA loan. One of them is conventional financing. And I know that there is peeling paint on that damn garage. Which offer should I probably, now again, it's always up to my client as to which one they take, right? And they may say, you know what? I want to help that vet. And to be honest with you, I hope they do. But let's say that I'm looking at these. What do I need to tell these people? What do I need to tell them about the risk involved in this VA loan? Anyone?
Depends on who the lender is on that VA loan too.
What's that?
I said, depends on who the lender is on that VA loan too.
Sure, who the appraiser is.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that you would present both offers on which is going to be the easiest to get to close.
Okay. And by easiest, you mean what? What's the problem with the peeling paint?
Well, will it pass the inspection? And like, there's just a lot more steps for the VA loan, which the reason I said it depends on the lender. We had a lender that it was like pulling teeth. I would never recommend this lender for a VA loan, ever. I mean, honestly, I probably would never work with him again if I had the choice.
Sure.
Just because they made the deal difficult, which goes back to you with the other agent as well. Which one's going to be easiest to get everybody to close?
So for
If they're similar in price and if that's what you're making.
Right. Okay, so what about an FHA loan? Let's say that I've got a buyer that's going to put down 10%, and they are conventional financing. And then I've got a buyer who is FHA, 3.5%. One of them is doing $1,000 earnest money, the conventional buyer. The other one's doing $500 earnest money. Does it matter? Should I mention anything to my client there as to what the risks are? Maybe. Now, we got to watch out. You don't want to make too many assumptions, and you certainly don't want to spin it too bad, but your client should know, right, that to some degree, a conventional buyer usually means that they have better credit. Therefore, it might be a little bit of a jump, but it could be surmised that they are more likely to get to the closing table. They have a stronger earnest money amount. So by having a stronger earnest money amount, that means that they do have more cash on hand. They're a little bit more liquid. They're obviously putting down a higher amount. So again, they're a little bit more liquid. You have to ask yourself, and again, you got to be careful with it to some degree, but you have to ask yourself, when you're thinking about those kinds of things, who is more likely to come to the closing table, right? Because there are certain things that, obviously could be denied. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say that I write in the offer that I'm going to put down 10%. Can I put down 5? Travis? If my client writes that he's going to put down 10%, can he put down 5 instead?
Yeah, I guess he can, absolutely. Up to, but that's somewhere, if he feels best at 5% and you have a great lender who is available to give him a loan for only 5% down, then yeah, roll it.
So that's what it comes down to, right? Because a lot of your buyers are going to say, well, I don't know. We're in this multiple offer situation.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that circumstance, yeah.
So well, and I didn't necessarily just present there. So let's say that we're in this multiple offer situation. It looks better that you're going to put down this much. Now, do I actually have to put down that much? No. But however, if your lender shows up and says, hey guys, I'm sorry, you have to put down this amount, otherwise no deal, then you're going to have to, right? So there are certain things in that negotiation. And again, this is more geared toward, agents that haven't done a lot of offers here. But those things are important. Appraisal. What happens when the appraisal goes south? Say the home doesn't appraise, right? We have the appraisal written in as a contingency. What are the 3 options at that point in time? Renegotiate. So there's one of them.
Walk away.
Walk away. That's right. You can immediately walk away. I, as the seller, even if I'm going to lower my price to whatever it's appraised at, can you walk away? You can. Because we wrote it that it has to appraise at this particular price. So you can walk, no questions asked, done. Or B, I can come down to that price. Or what's my third option? We talked about it a little bit. You can pay the difference, right? Never recommend C. Okay? However, there are times that it happens, especially when you're looking at a property that this one overlooks a pond or, has a lot of land, something that's not homogeneous, right? We're in, Waukee where, all houses are, $250,000 and there's a slew of them. It's a lot different. All right, so some of these things that we walk through, termite. If a home is found to have termites, can you walk away from the deal? Can a buyer walk away from the deal if a home is found to have termites? No. No. So in all inspections, so let me clarify. In all inspections, you have to give them the chance to remediate the issue. So if you find termites or wood destroying pests, you can't just simply say, deal's off, I'm done. You have to say, we want you to treat and we want you to repair any damage. And you can do that because it technically says on it, repaired to the buyer's satisfaction. That's the way that that's worded. So as a result, you can really bring in a structural engineer and all that kind of stuff. You can take it, although Tom is retired, so I don't know who the hell I'm calling right now. I don't know if anyone else has dealt with that really. But either way, you can really take them through the gamut of that. However, you've got to give them the chance. Sound good? What do we do in the event that we have a final walkthrough and that damn agent that we knew was going to screw the deal, his client didn't fix whatever it was? What do we do then? Any ideas? Can they walk away? Can they walk away from the deal? Can your clients walk away from the deal if the GFCIs weren't installed properly? Michelle?
Depends on the circumstances.
Depends on the circumstances. Give me an example of when they couldn't.
When they couldn't. If it's something minor, it depends on how it was written as to what it was. I mean, they could potentially walk away at the very least. It's going to be a delay.
What about in the event that we asked for something to be fixed and we show up, let's say that we asked for windows to be fixed and we show up and the trim looks like garbage. It looks god-awful. Can I walk then?
Did you ask to have the trim taken care of?
Okay, so specifics of the details of this deal are very important and written. I happen to write because, I come from an electrical background. I got a lot of buddies that could go in and do a whole lot of work really cheap, really fast. Is that what you want? If you're negotiating with me and you're asking for electrical work to be done, do you want my buddy to go and do the work? Now, they're going to be licensed, but do you want my buddy to go and do the work? What happens if something goes south and there's a fire? My buddy's insurance going to take care of that? What's the deal here? So we have to make sure that we're writing specifics. Me personally, because I started noticing agents would do this stuff, I started saying it had to be a licensed, reputable contractor, not a licensed electrician. I'm a licensed electrician. And here's the thing, is not a licensed, reputable electrician. You can kind of argue that. But I said reputable contractor, a contractor who's obviously been in the marketplace. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. I don't know a better specific way to do it. Do you?
It's going to be a good way to do it, just as far as the licensing goes, for sure.
But
don't ask for like switch plates to be replaced by.
No. To be honest with you, the only time that I'm going to do those kinds of things is if I'm encompassing it with a whole bunch of stuff. I'll say this, and this. All work to be performed by a licensed, reputable contractor. Receipts due, X amount of days before closing. So that way, I know that work was done. We're not showing up at the final walkthrough and we're like, "Where's the receipts?" What receipts? Y'all didn't ask for receipts. Like, how do I know that this was done right? Okay, so it's important when we're going over those things to be there. Now, What about if they didn't do something simple? Let's say that they didn't put in switches. They didn't put in switches where we wanted them. Something about that, something silly. The dishwasher is not running properly. Something less than that. Let's stick with the switches. What are you guys gonna do?
Don't they agree to mediate those smaller things and agree to arrive at a meeting of the minds?
They do. Are you pretty busy? You pretty busy right now?
Okay.
How many deals you got going on right now?
4 or 5.
Okay. You gonna mess with that? You're gonna delay closing in your paycheck today?
Right.
I'm not. Some people are really hard up on this kind of stuff. I'm calling my electrician buddy, man. Now, there's some rules about that, right, Michelle? We can't say that this is the reason that they bought the house and the reason that they closed on it. But I will tell you, I'm looking for a hero moment every time I can with my clients. You know what? Don't even worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. You know what? My realtor made sure that I didn't have to worry about anything. He took care of this, he took care of that. I look for those hero moments. Because you know what? I give people closing gifts anyway, and I say, here's my closing gift. This is my closing gift from me to you. I'll take care of that. Don't worry about that. You know, we showed up and the lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. Bastards. Who does that, right? You know, leaves it and just, I'm taking care of it. I'm taking care of it. I'm calling my guy. Why? Because I want them to have a good taste in their mouth over the deal. Now, should I call that agent and complain at him? Yeah. I might even send him a bill to be a smartass, right? You know, I have, you know, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that, in my opinion, and maybe people could argue the technicalities over that and whatnot, but I want my clients to feel good about the deal. I don't want little petty stuff to hold it up. We work with too many things going on. I mean, we're gonna delay closing and cause stress for these people. No, I'm gonna take care of it if I can. It's something minor. I'm not gonna, you know, bend over backwards and have windows put in and all that kind of stuff. We're going too far here, right? I'm not gonna let that agent and their client get over on them either. However, little minor things, I think I've seen a few agents throw out there, you know, what are we doing this event? I don't know, you take care of it for your client, man. Like with a smile on your face and tell them, thank you for being my client. That's what you do. So we talked a little bit about preparing the offer and what is negotiable, what is commonplace, right? So you want to think about those things, you know, really know your contract. What can come off? What is common? Ask yourself, why have I been doing it this way the whole time? You know, what is on here that I'm almost refusing to take off? Here's the reason that I bring it up. Because you might have a client that asks if you can do something, and your default might be, I've never done it like that, so no. Well, no, in all actuality, you can, right? You know, so think about that, especially newer agents as you're looking through your contract. Really know it, really know why you're writing certain things a certain way. For instance, when I was taught to write an offer, 10 business days inspection period. So I just did it for the longest time. I'm like, well, that's common, right? No, it's not common, and especially if you're in a multiple offer situation, make it 5. Oh, by the way, it's business days. I want to throw that out there, guys. I've had several agents in the last 6 months. I've had 2. Oh, you went past your 10 days, man. We're not doing anything. No, we didn't. It's 10 business days, sir. First off, you should never play the whole got you game, because that's never going to work, right? You know, again, you're not buying good grace there at all. But know that unless it says otherwise, unless it's specifically stated otherwise, everything is business days. Right, Michelle?
It's like line 13 in the purchase agreement for DMARC for our Cedar Rapids and Davenport friends.
It's right there up front, okay? So, so we kind of went over the pros and cons of financing terms. Now, a big one on all of this kind of stuff is thresholds. How low of an offer is too low to get a good response from a seller? That's a question you're going to get asked a lot. What should we make the offer at? How low should we go? Shane, how low are you willing to write an offer without any rebuttal to your client's law? Just nod your head and go.
I'll say, look, chances are they're gonna sell us at this price anyway, if I feel like we've got a price right. I said, however, if there's a reason for a low offer, let's talk about it, and I'll present that to them. Because if the house is overpriced for what it is, we have a case, okay? So then I can go back and say, hey, I know this is low, but here's why we're coming in here. And then I can make the case for the number that we gave them. But I'm always struggling with people that, sometimes I'll let my buyers just lose a few, because I don't want to be the one to say, hey, you've got to come in at this price.
That's right.
Then they're thinking, what's this guy not working out for me?
You're buying that trust, right?
So I'll let them lose a few, and then they're like, oh, no, we need to come in higher on this one, because we're losing every one of these. Like, all right, so now they've come to that conclusion themselves. I'm not the one
So
right.
now they're listening to you, though.
Yeah,
And it's their idea.
yeah.
Got it. So that's a big one, guys. I mean, there are plenty of times where I'm like, I know we're losing this one. I'm writing it at 9 o'clock at night. Kind of sucks, but it's all part of the gig.
I'll tell my wife constantly, she's like, what is, I said, I need an hour. I said, I'm writing an offer that's not gonna get accepted.
There it is. Get used to it. Get used to it, because in this market right now, people are not going to trust you if I say, come on. You're going to write it 10 grand less in this market? Come on. I mean, we're talking about a $145,000 house that's stellar. I don't know that those exist right now, but you know. Okay? That's really good. That's really good. So when I'm thinking about those kinds of things, I ask myself, am I even going to get a response? Right? So let's say that someone comes in and they say, I want to write it $10,000 low, and you have been working on things with me. This is number 3. What do you say there, Shane?
If they want to come in 10,000 low,
10% low.
10% low,
10%. It's a big one, guys. Percentage.
how long has the place been on the market?
4 days.
I said, hey, let's wait. I'll write it up, but I said, there's no way we're gonna get it for that.
Would they be interested in an escalation clause?
For those that don't know, tell us what an escalation clause is.
So it's basically where you can set almost like a max bid. So the way I think it's worded is you're willing to offer, let's say it's priced at 140, you're willing to offer 140 and pay up to, it's either typically like $1,000, maybe $500 more than the highest offer. So basically you can say we're coming in at 140, but then we're willing to pay up to 150 as long as it beats another bid by $1,000. Does that make sense?
So an escalation clause is a big call.
Yeah.
They know that you
Prove that.
Yes, it's actually, I think you can find it now. I think it's, I think if you search multiple offers, I just used one not that long ago, or escalation clause, it's in there.
When you're writing an addendum, it actually will
Pops
come-
up, like
it'll pop
generally,
up.
yeah, I noticed that for a while
It'll
too.
pop up and you can put that language in there. Okay, so a couple things about escalation clauses since it got brought up. Escalation clause, you know, was this hot new thing a few years, 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago when I first got in. I remember watching a video and Rob Spearman was like, oh man, we got this escalation clause, and he was swinging it around like it was awesome. I've been burned on escalation clauses every time I've used them, which is only 3 times. Burned. So you mean to tell me, Travis, your client's willing to pay $2,000 more for this house than you're offering?
Yeah, that's what's good.
All right, I'm gonna present that to my client. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna counter back $2,000 higher than because I know that you're gonna pay it. I know that you guys are gonna pay it. You know what? When I pulled the multiple offers off of it, I'm just gonna pull it off of it. I'm gonna say, hey, we've decided to counter you. If you guys wanna play, this is what we want. Now your client's gonna be like, well, wait a minute, do they have another offer for it? Well, we know that there's multiple offers. So here's the thing is, just because I call for highest and best, doesn't mean that I have to accept highest and best either. I can counter that offer, right? By the way, you don't always have to call for highest and best, okay? So when we're getting into multiple offers, an escalation clause, kind of going back again, you can put whatever amount that you want Okay? You can say, my client is gonna pay up to X more than what anybody else has paid. They're gonna pay $1,000 more than what anybody else has paid up to X price, so we're capping. But we wanna be able to see that offer, right? So it's a bluff caller, in my opinion, right? It's one of those situations that might work really well if you've got a client who doesn't believe that there's multiple offers. That's what I kind of reserve it for, is like, they're like, nah, they're just BSing us. Which, by the way, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. I know that it happens, but don't do it. It'll only bite you. It'll only bite you to say, oh yeah, there's multiple offers, you guys better do this, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that, okay? If in the event that I've got a buyer who wants to call that bluff and find out, I'll do it, but every time sellers, they want it, that's cheating. They wanted to pay that, they should have. We're going with the other offer. Didn't buy them trust, didn't buy them grace. Now, I've actually had agents say, what? That happened to you? 3 times. 3 times. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to say that it's not a tool that could be used. I mean, you guys might find better luck with it. I've found terrible luck with it. So, but multiple offers. Let's get back to multiple offers real quick. What's the best way to make your offer stand out in multiple offers? Any ideas? Shane, you've been doing this a long time, right? Okay, just so that everybody kind of has an understanding, I mean, what kind of volume, what kind of numbers are you doing this year? Where do you want to average? How about that? That's better. Transactions, how many?
45, 50.
Okay, so a lot of transactions. I mean, you do a lot of business. So with that being said, when you're in multiple offer situations, what do you do to make yours stand out?
Strip as many contingencies or pockets as possible, or make them less barriers. Inspection day is big. That's just been one of those, and we did the same thing. Actually, they had just had previous deal fall through due to inspection. So I'm like, hey, this is gonna be a big deal. Let's get this inspection done in 5 days. I've already called my inspector. He's got time available. We can make this work. I said, I guarantee that they're gonna like this because they had to wait. They don't wanna wait 10 business days.
Right, 2 weeks.
Fall through again.
Yeah, absolutely. So he said something that's really important. Take as many contingencies as you can off the table. Keep the offer clean. If you can, get rid of those closing costs. If you can, and they're comfortable with it, get rid of that warranty, which, by the way, is sometimes not worth the paper that's written on. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. Get rid of that. Take that off the table. Make that closing time tighter, or at least flexible. Make that inspection time a lot tighter, right? You know what? Get rid of the washer and dryer if it wasn't on there, right? Take those things off of the table, right? Okay, clean up your offer, all right? That all makes sense? So that takes me to tokens. So we're talking about tokens and negotiation. So a token is the shirt on your back, right? So there are some techniques out there of negotiation and how to do increments and all that kind of stuff. I don't find that they fit with real estate. Believe it or not, a lot of negotiation books that you'll read will tell you to try to make offers that are ridiculous, that we would never make in real estate because we at least want someone to respond and have a conversation with us. We're not walking into some cheap store talking about knickknacks here, okay? It's a little different, okay? But with these increments and whatnot, some of these great techniques, I always write things with everything on it. It's in the house for appliances, I'm writing it on it. And my clients might not want it. They might actually not be that married to this washer and dryer. In fact, some people think washer and dryers from other people are gross, especially in COVID days. They're like, I don't know that, get rid of it. But I'm gonna write it on there. I'm gonna write it on there. I'm gonna use it as a token later. So when we are negotiating back and forth on numbers, and look, $500 more, they'll leave the washer and dryer. leave the washer and dryer. It's a token. It's a token. They really didn't, almost nobody cared about it. It was inconsequential to the deal. But it's a token to throw it out there. Okay, that's another Chris Voss technique. Little things like that can come up. Hey, you know what? We'll do this. This condo, I know it's got really high dues. I know that you guys have mentioned that. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. You guys come up here. We will give you a year to the Y. I don't even have a workout facility. Here's a year to the Y. It's almost kind of like, well, kind of caught me off guard. Yeah, I kind of like the idea. That's fine. You know what? Extra $1,000 is, $4 a month to me. I'll do that. You guys are taking care of me, for a Y membership. Tokens, little things, right? Red blue balance. I want to talk about this real quick. I'll get through it quickly. Kerry Evans, he wrote the book Performing Under Pressure. It's kind of like the Tony Robbins for soccer players and rugby players over in Australia and New Zealand. So, players doing really good, something happens, they lose their mind, they're not doing good anymore. He's the guy that they call him, okay? He talks a lot about your red-blue balance. It's going to be really important because there will be times where you feel like you've been attacked in a deal or your client has been attacked in a deal. If you're not keeping your stuff together, you're not keeping your cool, you get upset, you fly off the rails, you might A, say something that you simply cannot take back, right? Which might be information that you didn't want to give, right? B, you don't necessarily, it's hard to be upset, again, and curious. It's one of the two. You're either upset or you're curious. And if you're not curious, then you're not actually getting information. You're not probing for information at that point. Instead, you're trying to win the deal, win the argument, win the conversation. And it doesn't get you anywhere, okay? So that's a really good book that I recommend. At least for me, kind of going back to where I started with this background, that's been my biggest hang up my entire life. I'm a hothead. I get upset, if someone rubs me a little bit wrong, I go off the deep end and there it goes. And it ruins everything, every single time. I have never, ever beat anyone into submission to giving me what I want in a deal. Ever. It doesn't work like that. They're not gonna do it. So making sure that you keep your cool, you keep your red-blue balance, right? Red being upset, blue being cool. By the way, you don't want to be too cool. You don't want to be too relaxed because you won't get anything done for your client. You got to have a little bit of drive. You got to have a little bit of grit. And you got to have some skin in the game. That all makes sense? I want to kind of wrap up here again with these basic tips. Where are we at on time?
Just a little over.
Okay. So just kind of going back over this information here. Tips, information is currency. Trust is currency. Respect and grace is earned by giving respect and grace, right? You've got to come from a place of understanding and empathy. Never give bad news through email or text. Talked about that. Tokens, those are those small increments. Fair, I want to talk about the word fair. Fair is a 4-letter word people will use on you, right? We just want what's fair. We're just trying to get what's fair. It's actually manipulative. It really truly is. It will work to your advantage because, again, nobody wants to be rude, just like nobody wants to be, not be fair. What do you mean I'm not fair? I'm not a fair guy. I'm reasonable, right? So nobody wants that. Okay, so they'll start to, if somebody uses that on you, you need to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I'm real sorry. When did I stop being fair? Call them out on it. Make them say where it's not being fair and why it's not being fair. Again, other agent is not your adversary. Don't build castles in the sand. Don't draw lines in the sand. This comes down to managing expectations. Don't say to your client, guys, if they don't give it to us for this, you should walk. You should walk. Don't do that because you know what you're probably going to do? You're going to rile up the guy who's like, yeah, that's right. That's exactly why I'm not going to do that. And she's going to be like, you're buying this damn house otherwise, right? Don't draw those lines in the sand. Don't build those castles in the sand to say, oh, you know what? We're definitely going to get you this. We're definitely going to do this. This will all be here. Do not overpromise and underdeliver. Don't do it. don't spin it either as the way that you see what is or is not fair in a deal. Let them tell you what is fair and come from a place, again, of empathy and understanding of what that makes sense. I can see, I'm honoring reason. I can see how you got to that. But I'll tell you what, let's not worry about that. Let's focus on what you want. You guys got to be in a house before Christmas. We're running really slim on it. You guys still love this house, right? You still love this. I know that they're not giving us all that we want, but I'll tell you what, is this really that important? If so, how can we work together to come up with something else that makes you happy? Right? Okay? None of that is bullshit. None of that is spin. I'm actually trying to get to what is important to them and get them off of the focus of win, win, win. Because people will do that. They'll start focusing on, I need to win. I need to be the one who comes out victorious in this negotiation, especially if you're dealing with a D. In those types of situations, I want to make sure that I'm not building castles, I'm not drawing lines. And I'm not married to those expectations, right? Has anyone ever said, oh, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, and this is the way that it should be? It'll always bite you. And then always focus on your client's process needs and wants, not yours, right? They can smell it when you bring what you want into the game, when you bring what you need into the game. We don't care that you're broke, you haven't closed anything this month. It does not matter. It does not matter. And I promise you that, just like what Shane was saying here, those deals fall apart, right? And do you want those deals to fall? Do you want to write an offer at 9:30 at night and not make it work?
Oh.
No, no, nobody wants to do that. But it is in your client's best interest to help them move through the buyer's journey of self-discovery to learn that. And that's what we do, because we're the fiduciary. That's what we're going to do. Sucks. It's not always great, but that's part of the gig, man. And then, again, know your contract. You guys should know that in and out. Then we've got resources on the back. Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, the Code of Trust, Robin Dreeb. And before we get under pressure, Kerry Evans. I recommend going and reading all those books, checking out any videos that they have. Robin Drake, FBI behavioral analyst, and Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss, again, FBI negotiator. And I talked a little bit about Kerry. Any questions? I know I went over time. Any questions at all over any of this?
I'm checking with our virtual attendees too. Nod your head, shake your head, something. They're like, no question. Question?
Awesome,
Oh,
right.
there we go.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was wondering, and this has always been my question, because I thought that Michelle said all offers have to have a rejection. Like if the seller rejects it, so I have 2 stubborn clients, also read to, but they're like, that's not even a real offer. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I need you to sign the rejection, and they'll sign it only because it's me asking for it. But like it's like, I don't even want to consider that. That's an insult. I'm not even going to consider that. Do they actually have to sign a rejection?
Not to my knowledge. As far as I understand, now if the agent on the other side is requesting that you do that, then that is different, to make sure that your offer was in fact presented.
Okay.
However,
I mean, like when the agent calls and says, I have an offer coming in, and they're like, well, it's going to be really low. And I'll say, I'm going to tell you, this is what they said their bottom line is.
I mean,
I'm telling you that. I will take a look at it. I will present it, but I'm going to tell you at this time, this is what they said their bottom line
if
is.
they request it, as I understand, you do have to get it signed.
Okay.
But that's if an agent, I mean, if I'm coming to you with a low offer and you say that kind of stuff, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, I get it. Now, if my client's like, did they even present it? And it starts to go down that road, well, then sure, we'll do that. But I mean, there's a lot of things, just like the document for a counteroffer. I never use it. I've had other agents that are like, oh, we got to do this. I do a verbal counter and we get back together, and then eventually we're starting to cross things up. I mean, there's 100 ways to skin the cat, right? You know, and that's the way that I feel most comfortable about it. I feel, in fact, if you do certain things that are almost too formal, people start to immediately kind of get thrown off by that, if that makes sense. You know, they're kind of that code of trust again. They're like, whoa, hold on. You know, we're having a conversation here. Let's go back and forth on this. And then once it's all put together, we put it together. By the way, it's not signed, it doesn't mean anything. For newer agents, if I text you that I have accepted your offer and I get another offer higher, I can take it. But it's in writing. No, it's not. Not until it's signed on the contract. All parties sign on the contract. Make sure that your clients know that we need to sign this counteroffer or whatever it may be. We need signatures now,
And deliver.
delivered. Because if they show up or someone else, they can take that off. Big one. Did that answer everything though?
Yeah, I was curious on that.
Yeah.
You said something that made me think of it.
The other protection is for you as the listing agent is if you're not getting that signed off and complaints start rolling into the real estate commission, can you prove that you are presenting offers or that you're not?
Any other questions?
I think Travis had one.
I was just brought it on. And that's
Oh, okay.
That was awesome.
Okay, then rah rah.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you. Thank you so much.